In a recent tweet, Conor McGregor claimed he won all of his UFC world titles on one leg. McGregor suffered a nasty broken leg against Dustin Poirier in their trilogy fight that took place at UFC 264 over the summer. McGregor's leg snapped in the first round, and he was not able to make it past the end of the round, which led to Poirier winning the fight by TKO. In the months since then, McGregor has made it clear that he thinks the ending of the fight was a fluke, and that he wants to get back in there with Poirier for a fourth time one day. Taking to his social media recently, McGregor shared a video from the third Poirier fight, claiming that the fight was going his way before the unfortunate leg break. According to McGregor, he did fight with a broken leg during the match, which became possible for him to do because he says he had a previous experience while competing with injured limbs. I became a master at fighting on one leg since my ACL reconstruction in 2013. I won all my UFC world titles on one leg. It's why I was able to maneuver through the fight even though it was snapped, and not bear weight fully until the very last seconds of the round. McGregor did tear his ACL in his fight against Max Holloway in 2013, which at that point in his career seems so long ago. He has been able to make it to the top of the sport in several weight classes since then, so even though that wasn't a broken leg, McGregor feels like that his previous experiences with lower limb injuries have helped him going forward. During a recent livestream on his YouTube channel, Michael Bisping reacted to Luke Thomas saying him and Glover Teixeira were borderline Hall of Fame worthy. He had the following to say: "Well, Luke Thomas, I am in the fucking Hall of Fame, so deal with it. You think I shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame? I mean, I'm not going to big myself up, but I was the first person from the UK to go on The Ultimate Fighter and win The Ultimate Fighter. I was the first person in the UK to headline a UFC pay-per-view. At one point, I had the most fights in the UFC. At one point, I had the most wins in the UFC. At one point, I landed the most significant strikes in the UFC. And I'm the first and only ever British UFC champion, so as I say, deal with it, Mr. Luke Thomas, and I don't like to big myself up like that, but sometimes you've just got to let people know the facts." Lightweight contender Islam Makhachev continued his impressive winning streak this past weekend, submitting Dan Hooker in the first round of UFC 267. It was a wholly dominant performance from Makhachev, who was hit with only 4 significant strikes, and had fans wondering when Makhachev would finally get to challenge for the title. But despite the one-sidedness of the fight, the bout was not without controversy. Not from Makhachev's performance, but from the mic work of his longtime teammate Daniel Cormier. Following the bout, questions arose about whether Cormier should be allowed to call fights for his teammates. Specifically, lightweight contender Justin Gaethje spoke out on Twitter about Cormier showing bias towards Makhachev, an accusation Cormier vehemently denies. "How could I be biased to Islam? What could I have possibly said positive about Dan Hooker in that fight? There is no bias whenever a fight is clearly on one side. That's where it becomes a bit much for me, and that's when you start to understand and realize why the people from the outside, their opinions don't matter as much because they don't make those types of claims." However, Gaethje's issues with Cormier's work do not stem from his in-fight commentary, as Cormier suggested, but from his post-fight interview. Following the bout, Cormier spoke with Makhachev in the cage and pointedly asked his teammate, "Why should you fight for a championship as opposed to the winner of Chandler versus Justin Gaethje?" And given his relationship with Makhachev, the nature of the question rubbed Gaethje the wrong way, calling it incredibly biased. Again though, Cormier does not believe he has done anything wrong, not just last weekend, but for any of the numerous times over the years that he has commentated on his teammates' fights. I don't mind addressing this whole bias thing. I think it's absurd. I don't agree at all. I think it's absurd, and if you ask me if I am biased towards Islam Makhachev or Khabib, guys, I have called Khabib's fights. Luke Rockhold, Islam Makhachev, I've called all of their fights, and I feel like I have done their opponents justice. I go out of my way to make sure that we do their opponents justice. I'm a professional, and for as much as I love my teammates, I understand the difference to separate myself from that. Look, man, if you're not getting critiqued, then you're not doing a great job. Former UFC welterweight title challenger Stephen Thompson isn't ruling out a future move to kickboxing once his MMA career is over. Thompson is looking to get back in the thick of things in the UFC welterweight title picture after falling to Gilbert Burns at UFC 264. Before his loss to Burns, Thompson had put on back-to-back dominant performances against Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque. Thompson spoke with James Lynch about what's next for his professional career, and he appeared open to a potential move to kickboxing once he feels his time in the UFC is over. We'll see, man. Maybe do some kickboxing afterward. I still have it in me, man. I still have competitiveness in me. I don't want to fight for any other organization when it comes to MMA, so the UFC's it for sure. If I want to end my MMA career, it's gonna be with the UFC. Thompson appeared on the fast track to a third welterweight title shot before his loss to Burns. While there's been some speculation that Thompson may fight Khamzat Chimaev for his next Octagon appearance, he confirmed that is not the case. Thompson is well known as one of the best strikers in MMA today, with a karate background that has made himself one of the toughest puzzles to solve in the cage. Despite losing 2 title fights against Tyron Woodley, he was highly competitive in both, and many argue he won the first bout at UFC 205.